The one, the only, Brooke Pryor covers the Pittsburgh Steelers for ESPN at BE Pryor on Twitter. Is he really doing it? Is Mike Tomlin really going to go to Russell Wilson? He seemed kind of, yes, maybe. Is he going to do it?
Like Mike Tomlin told us yesterday, you'll have to ask me closer to game time because it certainly seems like this is a little bit of gamesmanship and I think also a little bit of grass is always greener type situation. I compared this to a white elephant gift exchange earlier today that Mike Tomlin has unwrapped Justin Fields. He sees what he has, but he has an opportunity to maybe go back under the tree and unwrap this quarterback-shaped gift that it looks an awful lot like Russell Wilson, like a Pro Bowl quarterback, a Super Bowl winner, but do you really know what you have when this wrapping paper or the gift underneath the wrapping paper also has a calf that's coming off an injury and is 35 years old and everything else? It's one of those things where he's so tempted to see what it is, especially because the Steelers' passing game has just not really lived up, but man, it's really hard to put Justin Fields back under the tree when you've seen what he can do with his legs. And when I asked him about it yesterday, he even point blank said, no, Russell Wilson cannot do what Justin Fields does with his legs. And that to me is kind of like, well, then maybe you shouldn't go to the guy that can't move behind an offensive line that is very injured and very much a work in progress.
Brooke Pryor is joining us here. Interesting, the white elephant. I was actually thinking about, I think it's let's make a deal. Because you know what you have in Justin Fields, but what's behind door number 2, or in this case, door number 3, that might end up being something that is broken. But maybe it's a risk-free deal, because I guess you can always go back to Justin Fields and he can take off his cape and kind of save the offense because he is. Look, it's not great. They don't have a great passing game, but he is helping them win. I'm just not sure Russell's pass game at this point is good enough to make up for the other things that Justin Fields does.
Yeah, you're right. And actually, I got some stats back from our good people at ESPN Research who look at the numbers because they make my eyes cross. And Justin Fields was actually more accurate at the deep ball last season than Russell Wilson, which I was really surprised by because that's really been a hallmark of Russell Wilson's game throughout his career. But Fields was more accurate. He ranked higher among all qualified quarterbacks. Last season, Russell Wilson's completion percentage was 66.4%. Right now, Justin Fields is at 66.3%, although I think it's dropped to about 57% in the last 2 games. He definitely has not been as good the last 2 games. But what he lacks in, passing efficiency, accuracy, all of those things, he's made up for with his legs, which is kind of a double-edged sword because sometimes he does use that as a crutch and maybe breaks the pocket when he doesn't need to. But just given how anemic this offense has been, and it's really been a thing that's plagued this offense for the last couple of years, even, before Arthur Smith and before Justin Fields and Russell Wilson and all those things, it has been nice to see the Steelers have an offensive option that can bail them out when it looks like, it's 3rd and long or, 2nd and long, and all of a sudden Justin Fields is running and he either makes it a 3rd and manageable, 3rd and short, or he picks up a first down. He really is an X factor that I don't think at this point in his career that Russell Wilson has, but I also think that because Mike Tomlin is a guy that very much sticks to his principles, and one of his longstanding principles is if you were a starter and you get hurt, you will not lose your job because of injury. This is his opportunity saying, all right, Russ, you're healthy. Go show me why I named you QB1 after training camp. Go show me why you started training camp in pole position, and let's see what you have. And, if this week in practice, if it looks like Justin's still the better option, or we start you this week and still looks like Justin's the better option, then you'll go to the bench, but not until you get a fair shake.
Brooke Pryor, who covers the Steelers, is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. She works for ESPN, which is also known as the New York Jets television network. We're going to get to the Jets in a second. I just wanted to set that up. The thing is about, I think Tomlin named Russell, better than I, but I kind of think that Tomlin named Russell QB1 before they acquired Justin Fields. And he didn't want to, maybe hurt Russell's feelings. So, okay, but then it was an open competition. So ultimately I come back to the Steelers aren't going to win pretty, no matter who the quarterback is. And at the end of the day, I think Fields' ability to make stuff happen when everything breaks down, I think ultimately will win out, even if they waste a week with Russell at quarterback. But man, you can beat the Jets by doing simple things.
Yes, you absolutely can. And I think you're right, by the way, about Russell Wilson essentially being named a starter before they even acquired Justin Fields. I don't know that a promise was necessarily made, but it was the understanding before they traded Kenny Pickett that Russ was going to come in and kind of work from that pole position. And Mike Tomlin is a guy that above everything else is very loyal to his people. This is a little bit different because he had this, longstanding loyalty with Ben Roethlisberger, but obviously he was in the organization for almost 2 decades. And Russell Wilson was in it for about 2 weeks before they added Justin Fields. But I still think that those principles hold true, and that's why he wants to give Russ a fair shake. But you're right. When you're going up against this Jets team, you don't have to do anything fancy. You just have to play mistake-free football, which, by the way, Justin Fields has largely done. He's had some turnover-worthy plays that were negated because of penalty or called back or dropped interceptions or whatever else. But still, by and large, it's been pretty turnover-free, which the Jets can't necessarily say the same of their offense. We know what happened on Monday night. What I would say is, be patient this Sunday. I don't know who the officiating crew is, but, man, they can't throw any more flags than the crew did on Monday night.
We're out of flags. They're completely out of flags. So. Yeah, they have to go get more. Brooke Pryor from ESPN. All right, so I believe they went through the entire – I shouldn't say they. I'll call out Mike Greenberg. I don't mind because we'll get him on the show to talk about his book, and I will tell him this, he and Hembo, to their faces or their ears. They went through the entire gamut of emotions before the Davante Adams trade. It was the Jets do everything that losing organizations do. It's a losing organization. I mean, we can't get around that. That's why I stopped being a fan. I can't be a fan of complete incompetence. But I don't know what adding Davante Adams does. It gives them another good wide receiver. Of course, the Rodgers-Adams heyday was 4 years ago. It's been a minute since those two guys were an item. It's just sort of like Ben and Jennifer Lopez,
yeah.
Right? Getting back together. I don't understand this. That didn't work out the second time, by the way. But I think the Jets have deeper problems than another wide receiver. I mean, it'll make their offense a little bit better, but I think their problems are deeper than that. But what are your thoughts on Davante going to back to New York to New York?
I would say the Ben and J-Lo comparison is spot on because the first thing that I thought when I saw Davante Adams pop up in the back of Aaron Rodgers' interview with Pat McAfee yesterday was, wow, Davante Adams is just like us. We also can't stay away from our toxic exes. And here Davante Adams is kind of sheepishly in the back of Aaron Rodgers' interview. Star wide receivers are just like everyday people. It really feels like a Band-Aid on a bullet hole type situation because the Jets, for all of their problems, like, yes, they need more consistent wide receivers, but to me, that's not their number one issue. I think the offensive line needs to be better. Defense has been pretty good, but also pretty inconsistent. And then you fire the defensive coordinator or the head coach that was a defensive guy who, I mean, largely had the defense looking pretty good. And then it felt like they regressed on Monday night. The offense hasn't been able to move the ball seamlessly. To me, yes, there have been moments where Aaron Rodgers looks like Aaron Rodgers and looks like, oh, yeah, that's right, this is why we moved the assets and went all in to acquire him. But sometimes he also just looks like a 30-something quarterback coming off an Achilles tear. He's just not the same guy. And it really feels like he's trying to hold on to something that he previously had but doesn't really have anymore. And it felt like a panic move and one that they did to appease Aaron Rodgers, which this organization feels like it's really bent over backwards. This is the Aaron Rodgers Jets, not the New York Jets anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that it's, in some ways it's sad and it's also like, man, you better be able to go all in and win a Super Bowl here because you have given this guy the farm and the keys and the deed and the land that it's on. Like it is his team now, his franchise.
Yes.
And that's concerning if this doesn't work out. I mean, I also think the fact that the terms of the Davante Adams trade show me just what a desperation move this was, because it's not just about the assets that they give up, what a conditional third that could become a second, but like they took on all of his salary. Like this, they didn't really seem to negotiate much at all. I mean, maybe they came down from a solid second to make it a conditional, but they pretty much did what the Raiders wanted because it's what Aaron wanted. So I hope it works out for them.
Oh, in many ways, I hope it doesn't, because it just it increases the comedy. And it's funny when it's the Jets. So Jets fans have always been irrational. I pride myself on being rational. The thing about it is, I'm not sure that there is that much risk in the Adams portion of this, because it only becomes a second if Adams becomes an all-pro or he is active when the Jets play in the conference championship game or the Super Bowl. And I can't imagine the Jets are even going to make the playoffs, let alone play in the conference championship game or the Super Bowl. And if Adams is an all-pro, then they probably will, and then it would be worth it. And plus, the last 2 years of his contract are not guaranteed, so I don't think the Jets have anything. So the Raiders are on the hit for the dead cap hit. So I don't I'm not 100% up on all of that, but the bigger risk is what's going to happen with Rodgers in the offseason and where the Jets go beyond that, because they didn't cover themselves. They're going to have to go get a veteran quarterback next year regardless, because there's nobody in this draft that can play right away. And unless Rodgers wants to play one more year, and he doesn't look like somebody who wants to play one more year. No. He looks already beaten down.
I mean, even just by facial expressions, it's not even like the lack of mobility. My God, I mean, the man does not have a poker face. No. I can tell you that. You know, the second that he is annoyed or frustrated or disappointed, he has permanent disappointed dad face.
There's not enough ayahuasca that could take that out. Brooke Pryor. There was other things I wanted to get to, but we don't have time. You're the absolute best. Brooke Pryor, at B.E. Pryor on Twitter. ESPN covers the Steelers. Good luck. Put Gangrene out of their misery this week.
It'll be one for the books. Another primetime matchup. What can go wrong?
Gosh, the Steelers have had all sorts of great high-profile games of late. Even though it's not vintage Pittsburgh or Raiders, it did take me back to the mid-'70s, though, when I used to watch all of it. Now I just can't follow it. Brooke, you're awesome. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Peace.